Hi, this is Randy Rolfe from the Institute for Creative Solutions, sharing foundational concepts about vibrant health through natural living. And yesterday there was a wonderful article in the BBC, and it was called, "Do We Really Live Longer Than Our Ancestors?" And this is a very interesting question because there's so much popular thinking that somehow all the chronic diseases that people are facing are because we are living so much longer. And what this article shows is that that is not true, that the statistics about earlier civilizations or pre-civilization that say, oh, they only lived till 35 and 40 was an older man, is not true. There are many, many records of people living into their 70s and 80s. And even in ancient Rome, there were a few people reported over 100. And the statistics are changed because baby and childbirth was very dangerous, and babies and children often died early, and that changes the statistics completely. In the article, they point out that if you have two children born within a year or two, if one dies in a year and the other lives till 70, their average life expectancy is 35. And so it's not a good predictor of longevity or lifespan. So there's a big difference between lifespan and life expectancy at any given age. And I did research quite a while ago looking at insurance statistics. And if you look at the life expectancy at age 50, it hasn't changed more than a year or two in 100 years, even more than 100 years. Lots of our founding fathers and mothers lived well into their 70s, as did Jefferson and Adams and many of our other early leaders. And even in Roman times, many of the senators lived into their 70s. And it's not just the highly privileged people, but anyone who wasn't killed in war or died in childhood or was affected by influenza or some kind of terrible epidemic, like in the 13th and 14th centuries, people were expected to live to be older. For instance, senators in ancient Rome, they weren't even allowed to serve until they were 43, which is older than what we require of our US presidents. So it's important to realize that we are experiencing chronic disease earlier and earlier and earlier. And it's not because we're living to be older. The actual lifespan in all the previous civilizations that have been studied by experts in these kinds of things show that the typical lifespan was over 70, just like it is now. So don't be misled thinking that you have to suffer some kind of chronic condition because you're over 50. This is very misleading. Many people have always lived into their 70s with a good lifestyle. And that's the basic distinction in the studies of the ancient peoples. The people who had a safe environment and ate decently, had enough to eat, and weren't worked to the bone on physical labor, did tend to live into their 60s and 70s like they do now, and some made it into their 80s and 90s. In fact, today, the life expectancy of a 70-year-old is quite good. They're likely to get into 90, which means that it's all about lifestyle. The way we lead our lives, if we don't destroy our life between, say, 30 and 70, chances are we'll just keep going for a while, which is good news. So it's all about self-care and choosing a good lifestyle, getting the sleep, the water, the food, and the good positive attitude and great relationships that make for a long, healthy life. So have a great week.